Hey, we're recording, guys.
All
All
right.
right.
This is all on tape.
Look alive, everyone.
Everything that you say is going to be used against you in a court
in a court of law.
in court of law.
We do this for a living.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I am meteorologist Ben Derry. Welcome to another segment of what we affectionately call Weather or Whatever. It's our weekly Weather Mind segment where we talk about all things weather. It can be local, it can be national. We kind of discuss current events, all weather related. And alongside me is meteorologist Jamie Cagle, and someone you may or may not remember. Recognize. This is Ren Claire, meteorologist Ren Claire.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
This is day 2 for me, and we're having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been really great. So happy to be here. Looking forward to working with you guys, learning from you too. And we've got a lot of weather topics to discuss, some of which are maybe a little bit less important than others, but we're going to do it.
Some of which may be controversial. And I want to start right off the bat and just ask, how many National Weather Service alerts can you name off the top of your head? Because there are a lot.
That's a good point. I mean, I guess we could just start counting and see how many people we lose bit by bit.
Because you have avalanche warning.
Yeah.
You have red flag warning, which is another controversial topic.
Are we considering like nautical? Or
that's part of it. If
Gale warnings.
Okay, because that
storm warnings.
Storm warnings.
Fog advisory.
Marine warnings. Oh yeah, there's
flood.
a lot of them.
It's ridiculous. But all right, we are very glad that you are here. You are rounding out our now full weather department. This is the first time in I think several years since Laura Becker decided to do more Grow with Care stuff.
That's what Dan was saying. Yeah, he was saying that. Yeah.
This is the first time we've been fully staffed, like to the brim. In several years, so it's great to have you here. And it's honestly, it's the first time that I've ever seen an entire weather department is not only from the same state, they're from the same like general region as well.
Yeah.
Where are you from?
I am from Hopkins, so that's where I grew up. My parents still live there. That's really it. I mean, when it comes to Minnesota, I guess I lived in Linden Hills for 1 year, but most of my life was Hopkins.
So a stone's throw from the station.
That's true. Actually, very much so. Yeah. All my family's here, my cousins, my aunts and uncles. So, yeah, that's what I got.
That's pretty cool. And you're from St. Anthony Village.
Grew up in St. Anthony Village. That's what I would consider my hometown. Lived in Burnsville for a while as well. Now in Plymouth. So kind of bounced around the Twin Cities, but haven't always lived in Minnesota. I had this weather tour of the country called a career, but I wanted it always to come back to Minnesota. So here we are.
That's the goal.
It's the great homecoming, right?
Yeah. And you're just northeast of
Chisago City is where I go. Chisago Lakes. Go Wildcats. Yeah, it's now turning into a bit more cabin country as people are like people that kind of lived and grew up there are kind of retiring, selling their homes and
I told my mom that I wanted to maybe, because they live, again, Hopkins, so Southwest Metro, and I said, I really want to kind of live a little bit farther out of the city, get a little bit more nature, and I was looking at the North and East Metro, and she just pointedly said to me, she goes, well, we wouldn't see you.
That's funny.
So now I am also in the Southwest Metro. So there you have it. I mean, I feel like we just kind of get into our routines here. We might try some new things, move around the country, but most people want to go back to home.
I think it's a great place to raise a family. That's we got 3 kids right now. And what's funny, you mentioned about wanting to be in touch with your family. Yeah. My mom will call me when I have like 2 days off from my normal shift and it's like, where are you? What are you doing? Who is this person that's on air right now?
They get concerned.
Yeah, they do.
It's like you have to send your whole family a group text warning that you may be off for a day.
Yeah.
Oh, mine will text me when I'm off and say, hey, what do you think about these storms coming through right now? And just this last week when the tornadoes were in the area on Thursday, I was in the Bahamas and my brother was texting me. He's like, do you think they'll extend the tornado warning?
And you're like,
I looked at my phone and said, I'm in airplane mode. So
yeah.
No, I mean, serious topics for being on vacation. You kind of want to say, hey, here's a list of other people that are plugged in right now and maybe check in.
So I gave him Ben's phone number. I said, text Ben.
Call him. He's on air. He has time to talk to you.
Text me.
He has all the time in the world right now.
That's the random number that keeps on. All the obscenities I've been getting. I got to thank your sibling for that. So again, we welcome you to KARE 11.
Thank you.
This is not the first time that you've had an outdoor weather set. Because that's kind of KARE
Yes.
11's thing, is we do weather outside in the beautiful KARE 11 backyard. Tell us about that.
The glory days, really. I don't know if we can recreate. I just shared a photo of me as a blue person. It was not an avatar bit. I did not get any sort of cut from that sort of production. It was just a camera issue on the weather deck that I worked in Rhinelander, Wisconsin at. And so it was like a lighting issue. I think it was right at dawn too, but I don't know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about cameras. So hopefully this makes sense to somebody. But yeah, I'm just totally blue. And so the newsroom cut the image, took a still, cut it, and then put me in a group of Smurfs and then sent it around to everybody.
I think we do need to see that eventually. So maybe
it can resurface.
Maybe we will get that picture and we'll fix it in post.
Can we recreate it though?
Possibly.
A family of
maybe.
Smurfs.
You know, we have some very talented production people here. I am very confident that we could do all sorts of embarrassing
tall
things
order.
with
could be
any
done.
one of our meteorologists.
Yes, true.
They're
So-
very talented.
So this show that you're on right now, we're like 5 minutes in. We haven't even talked a lick about weather
Not
right now.
really yet, but we can.
Again, it's weather or whatever.
whatever.
This is the whatever part. So it has been a major pattern shift from what some folks got used to last week. It's
Right.
raining like crazy. If you're watching this a little later in the week, we're talking on Tuesday, you're looking at the 24-hour rainfall that we've seen so far, and a lot of places approaching 2+ inches of rainfall over a large swath. These are not those localized thunderstorms which drop a ton of rain within a short amount of time and then leave over an isolated area. This is widespread soaking rain. Good news for a lot of folks that are hoping to not have to use their sprinkler system and farmers, but this can be too much of a good thing, right?
Oh yeah, I mean absolutely. Where you're looking at right along the Minnesota River Valley, you get to the Buffalo Ridge, more so west central and southwestern Minnesota, higher elevation, and you'll hear us talk a lot about the Minnesota River as it joins the Mississippi. And when you do have not just that elevation from the west towards Mankato, towards parts of near Jordan, especially, we talk about flooding there frequently this time of year, but that's a lower elevation as well. So the neighboring watersheds drain into that, and then as that joins the Mississippi, it brings a lot of agricultural runoff that then further pollutes the southernmost southeastern portion of the state as that Mississippi River moves into Iowa. And so that's something to keep an eye on. That sort of rainfall that heavily, it's just hard for the soil column to absorb that in a smooth way. It would be better to have that amount of rain, of course, as you guys know, over the course of a week versus 24 hours.
Yeah, and this time of year, we average about an inch of rainfall every single week. But like you said, I mean, that much rainfall in a short amount of time frame. And not to mention, this is the time of year where farmers have their fields are just plowed. They're just putting in their agriculture.
Yeah, and they certainly, I worked in Mankato for a number of years, and anytime you got heavy rainfall, thunderstorms primarily, and they couldn't get into the fields, that was very frustrating for them. I think the one thing we've been looking at as to why this is working out better than it could have been is that it's steady showers, it's light to moderate rainfall. The ground is rather dry because we had that dry spell.
Very, very
so the runoff won't be
as bad.
It won't be exceedingly terrible. There will be some runoff, but it's certainly, as we like to say, it could be a lot worse. And I think so. On this one, I think there's a lot of positives, but yeah, there's always that concern with any sort of runoff. But
and it varies, of course, by crop. What is the root depth? It's kind of early in the season for some crops. For others, not so much. So that you get roots that go deeper into the soil. Of course, you're going to kind of help prevent some of that erosion and some of the runoff of phosphorus and nitrogen.
And we certainly don't want to see crops drowned either.
Yes.
So again, the showers versus a downpour or a series of thunderstorms certainly plays to our favor, at least this time around.
It'll be interesting to see what happens over the next week or so to see if we get another big sizable rainfall event, which isn't necessarily in the forecast.
We were saying last year, right around May 20th or 21st, that was the last time we had just about this much rain in a single event.
In a single day, what is it, midnight to midnight, the last time we saw more than 2 inches of rainfall was, like you said, almost exactly a year ago, which is wild.
Odd. I mean, normally I feel like what I would consider normal growing up is you're looking at snowpack melt.
Yeah.
And that's the big source of water headed
Yeah.
into the growing season.
And that part
last
of the
year,
state
too.
and the flooding,
Yeah.
every spring, the flooding with the snowpack in southern Minnesota. And then last year, talking about, was it last year that we
Yeah,
had
the Rapidan Dam.
Yeah, like 3 days of just intense rainfall.
And that was in June. That was not
Summer,
snowpack.
yeah.
That was
Yeah.
just summer rains that continued to fall. And we're getting into the wettest time frame of year. Let's go ahead and bring up our microcast, and we'll show you what's going to be happening over the next day or so. Big low pressure system, a strong conveyor belt of moisture. That's going to gradually fizzle as we head into the evening. Notice, however, showers are still around, even as we head into Wednesday morning. Nothing heavy, no thunderous forms of precip. It's just going to be kind of that light scattered shower activity. And then notice it's not until Thursday morning, the end of the forecast period. Once we get into Thursday morning, that's when the low finally departs, high pressure moves in, and that's when the sunshine returns to the forecast, which after a gloomy stretch is kind of nice to see, right?
Yeah,
And
it is.
I heard from folks in Bismarck today, and they are just so over the moon excited about that snowfall in their forecast.
Oh yeah, they've just
Can't wait.
Late May, you're looking forward to Memorial Day. Like, there's what? Snow
Yeah.
in the forecast?
Can't wait.
Well, you live in North Dakota.
Yeah,
That's true.
I think
It's
it was
gonna happen.
this time yesterday was snowing in the Black Hills, so
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Can happen. So it'll be interesting to see if actually Bismarck does see anything. And what's wild too is to see such a wild contrast between the wet conditions we've seen here
In the Arrowhead.
Dry.
and what's
which is-
happening in northern Minnesota. Right? They
Right.
have a like extreme fire danger right now.
Right. I mean, their dew points were in the 20s. It's expected that relative humidity is actually going to drop as winds switch from more so out of the east with the large fetch over Lake Superior to more of a east-northeast and eventually northerly wind. That means that our relative humidity will drop even to 15 to 20% in the next couple of days. Good news is the winds won't be as strong, so we'll catch a break there. But yeah, those two air masses, what we're seeing in central and southern Minnesota juxtaposed to northern, that really is a very different sort of forecast, which I agree with John. I don't know that I've seen fire weather warnings stacked up against 2+ inches of rain like this
It's kind
Yeah.
of wild to see.
here.
I mean,
Quite some
we've had times, I think in the last couple of years, we've had times where we've had some parts of the region will have a winter storm watch and other parts will have severe thunderstorm warnings
Yes.
going on at the same time. We've seen that.
Yes.
But just the dynamics between the two air masses, how dry it is up north
Right.
compared to right now, our humidity is 100%. We have rain falling. And yet if you were to go to northern Minnesota, you'd be like, wow, it just feels bitterly dry, or just that skin drying
Yeah, it's
air
bone
up there.
dry up there.
Bone dry
and
air.
not only
yes.
that, but you still have these major wildfires, which
Yeah.
ignited
Right.
in the heat of last week that continue to burn. I mean, some of them are only 25, 30% contained, and this is not what you're looking for when you're.
They need our weather right now up there.
Yeah.
They do. And I mean, we're warming. It's not going to be as nasty towards the weekend as it has been here the last couple of days, but it's also not going to be exactly seasonal. It's not like you guys mentioned. It's not going to be warm. We're not in mid to upper 70s, 80s with a more humid air mass, which would be beneficial. It looks like it will be comfortable, like you said, sunny. 60s, mid 60s, maybe some upper 60s, but it's still pretty dry with our dominant wind direction looking to be mainly north, right, as we head into the end of the work week.
That's right. And you see just the wild contrast we've had so far this May. You're looking at the high temperatures of each and every day, starting from the first of the month until yesterday. And you can see what happened last week. Remember that little stretch of upper 80s to 90 degrees? It was 90 degrees. It was I think the earliest to 90 since 2017 or something like that. That wasn't super impressive. But what was impressive last week was just how long that heat lasted. You can see 1 or 2 days. That's pretty
Yeah.
typical to see upper 80s to near 90 this time of year. But it was 5-6 days in a row where you had temperatures that were anomalously warm. And it's thanks to just a big ridge of high pressure and nothing but sunshine.
I mean, even the week earlier, you had low 80s to mid 70s to a low 80 to, so you had some varying in the temperatures there, but that was a stretch there where the temperature from Sunday to Thursday didn't vary by much
Right.
at all. And just that dominant omega pattern we had and just the hot, dry weather, just a long stretch of dry weather in May when you're looking for those May showers.
And that's a good point too when you mentioned the omega pattern too, because I think, when we're talking about those different air masses right up against each other, oftentimes, clearly not always, this would be a case where it is not always the case, but when you're talking about a very dry air mass often up against maybe some Gulf moisture moving in from the south and southeast, and you see a dry line set up here in association with a low that's moving through the Midwest and that dry Canadian air moving in on the backside. That is not typically oriented, latitudinally like this band of rain just about set up with that drier air stacked over the more moisture. The position of a dry line, of course, can change, but I don't know that I've seen such a linear looking.
It's really
setup.
interesting to see, and we'll have to go back and look at just look at the overall setup, because we've had two weather systems that are kind of more reminiscent of something we see in early spring, like March or early April, where you have a big, deep, low pressure center, and you tend to, most of our weather is, comes from the west, right? Moves west to east. We're in the westerlies. But then now you're seeing weather appearing to come from the east because of these slow-moving weather systems that just kind of sit and churn. And even with the rainfall that we're seeing outside today, if you look at radar, it looks like it's coming from southeast to northwest. And it's really contrasting with that drier air that's sitting to the north.
Wonder. I think I might look up afterwards if I can. I know it will probably be a longer search, but kind of getting an idea of frequency of how commonly we see backdoor cold fronts here for this time of the year.
A lot of cutoff lows lately, too.
A lot of cutoff lows, yeah.
A lot of cutoff lows. The one that was a couple of weeks ago, a week or two ago, just along the Gulf Coast states. We've had that high stuck over us. Meanwhile, the Four Corners was picking up rain. The Ohio River valleys had a cutoff low that would sit there for a number of days.
And it just depends on if you're underneath that low, you're going to be dealing with cold, cloudy weather.
That's when people get angry. You said this is 2 days. Now we're at day 3.5. We're inching towards 4 because they just sometimes.
Meanwhile, when you're under the high, things are great.
It's all great. I mean, what do you think?
It's all sunshine.
Could you deal with more of those upper 80s, low 90s, if it's dry? I mean, once you get into later June and especially into July, you start to get that humidity. But it was surprising to see how low the dew points were during that stretch of hot weather. It didn't feel like 90 degrees.
I liked it, and I don't like heat. And I was like, we're good.
Reminiscent of Phoenix, when you're coming out of winter going into spring and the highs were 80 to 90 degrees, even 95, you're like, it felt like perfect spring weather. And most people up here would think, it's a little hot. You're like, but when your dew point's 10 degrees, 15, 20 degrees, it feels incredible, absolutely incredible. So that's what we had. And that was great.
I think we can show the monthly precip as well. That just shows that it's kind of come in little spurts, right? We had that dry stretch that lasted through the first full week of May into that dry, what do you call it? That super hot, dry weather through the first half of last week. And then we got those severe thunderstorms that gave us just a little bit of rain here at MSP, but we saw some tornadoes reported, and then just about every day seeing at least a little bit of rain. Last night, at least officially, over a half an inch of rain, and we're going to add on at least another 1.5 inches of rain from today's weather system.
Yeah, last time I checked, I saw within the 3-day history, it looked like early in the morning, I saw a total of 29 hundredths of an inch of rain reported, and then a secondary report of, I believe, close to an inch. So we're close to 1.5 inches, and then you add that 0.63, and we're doing all right. It looks like we've kind of made it to what is a typical amount of rain for this month, when I believe before yesterday we were shy by close to 2.
Yeah, way below
average. We're going to make up a lot of headway. And again, with it being showers, it's not as concerning. If this had been 3 days of thunderstorms like they had last year, Rapidan, that's an entirely different story.
And speaking of thunderstorms, what we're seeing today is more of that stratiform rain. It's not the thunderous variety. We saw some wild weather, some severe weather last Thursday. Belinda and I were doing some severe weather coverage, and you can see there was the strongest tornado from that day was an EF2 that started just outside Roberts, between Roberts and the Hammond area in western Wisconsin and St. Croix County, and traveled northward just outside the New Richmond area. The National Weather Service confirms it was an EF2 tornado with maximum wind speeds of 125 miles per hour, and the path length was just over 4 miles. Some of the video we've seen from that tornado is just spectacular. You don't see video that clear of a storm of that magnitude in this part of the country very often.
Oftentimes rain wrapped, and you can't quite see.
And the terrain. I mean, western Wisconsin is very hilly, so to see that, to get that shot, whereas when you're with Kansas and Nebraska, extremely flat,
Right.
wide open. You get great video down there. It's cinematic tornado country, if you will. But yeah, it's much more difficult around here. We
That's
have
true.
more tree canopies. We have the hills, the terrain, everything. Just makes it a little more difficult. But
And what I thought was wild too is like what we try to do is we always have a discussion before. We're going to let you inside the newsroom a little bit. So the meteorologist and the producers and news directors, we get together and we discuss where should we set people up to potentially cover any damage
Yeah.
that occurs. And we're thinking, all right, Western Wisconsin, especially
Right.
Pierce County, St. Croix County, these areas are going to get hit pretty hard. So we had a reporter that was out there, and then that tornado formed, and we had a reporter that was close to
Right.
on the path of
Yeah.
that. We're
She was
thinking,
in a hail court,
whoa,
actually.
yeah,
Our hail chef.
we
Yeah.
tossed it to her. And she's like, oh, yeah, it's been raining, and now all of a sudden the hail is going.
Right.
And we stop and go, wait, where are you? And just pulling up to New Richmond. Like, you got to get out of there. So it's just one of those moments where, you want to be the first to cover something, but you got to be safe about it as well.
Right, and it happens fast. I mean, when you had that history of about 1:20 in the afternoon, a couple tornadoes in Benton County, near Benson, is that right?
To
the west,
Oh, yeah,
from
the city of Benson.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was watching you. I was not on it, so I'm just trying to.
Yeah, your first day was yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. But that was not as favorable of an environment for a stronger tornado or a long track. And so once you started to see that instability reach that environment where we were most prone to violent weather, then it can happen really quickly. So that's partially why. Even when the weather is a little bit quieter in an area where we might say on air, hey, you're right on the line, or like you have a window of half an hour to maybe an hour and a half for some active storms, but it's worse to a different direction from you. We really do watch really carefully, how storms behave even before they reach that strong environment, because it can tell us a lot about what to expect. And I know that you and Belinda definitely were well aware that you weren't messing around with telling people to be really safe, especially once we were looking at tracks generally along and east of, I believe, 35.
Yeah.
But especially, like you said, western Wisconsin.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
what you can do is you can predict what the wind shear environment is going to look like. So when these storms develop, when they form, and they move into that area, you can judge based off of what the forecast was,
Right.
what these storms are going to do, and potentially
Yeah.
how severe they are going to become. Because we knew that Wisconsin was going to get hit with those longer track tornadoes, and there was still plenty of wind shear out across western Minnesota as
That's
well.
true.
For those of you who are wondering, wind shear is just the change in wind direction as you get higher and higher in the sky. So when you have an environment with favorable wind shear, it can mean these thunderstorms can possibly rotate, and that
Directional
rotation.
Yeah.
and speed, so
Yes.
vectors, yeah.
just tap into that environment and grow from there.
Yeah.
But then, we aren't the only ones that have been dealing with severe weather. In fact, good chunk of the country just in the last couple of days has been dealing with a number of tornadoes. Jamie, what are we looking at here?
Yeah, so we had those storms after they moved through Minnesota and Wisconsin. We saw that storm system basically move towards the Ohio River Valley, so you saw those tornadoes appear. And then we had another low. That's the one that's been coming at us this time around. And that's what set up thunderstorms right there. Denver,
The high plain, or
into the
central
high
plains,
plains,
central plains,
moved from Denver into Kansas, then continued on towards Texas, Oklahoma, and then for yesterday it was into the middle of the country there. So again, this is just looping through. The beginning of the loop, you'll see the tornadoes up in Wisconsin, and you're going to see how that low took everything towards the Ohio River Valley right there. And then as we continue, you'll see how the low that was coming in through the Pacific sets up Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas with that final round. And then last night right there, Arkansas, Southwest Missouri direction for those tornadoes. But that's over the span of about 4 days. That's it. I mean, that's a lot of storm activity. And that's just right there in the middle of the country, the most ideal place on earth for tornadoes to develop.
So Jamie, I have a question for you, maybe to kind of chat about with viewers about this as well, given your expertise in the subject matter. I know we all, of course, have plenty of experience, but what on the topic of tornadoes, when we show the climatology of here are the months where we average the highest frequency or highest number of tornadoes for different locations in the state of Minnesota or the region. We typically kind of hone in on summer months, and I think sometimes it can downplay a little bit, not with our coverage, but I think for folks when they have severe weather in the spring, if they're not meteorologists or not really weather enthusiasts, they're thinking, okay, well, that's something for summer. Can you talk a little bit about how the transition from winter into the summer, the spring months and early fall can actually be aided by, the position of the jet?
Well, yeah. I mean, when you talk about, when you do school talks, you talk about the jet stream and how it's this highway of wind. And I've always said, if you move the highway, you move the traffic and you move where things are, you're going to change that direction. So what we saw even earlier this year is we've seen some lows and we've seen some of those troughs come our direction. We typically would expect that to be Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, that direction. We would expect everything to move from south to north, warming with the season. That would be what you would see or would expect if you just open up a textbook. But for us, with the jet stream as active as it has been, it can move that warm air north. We saw the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s in the past 2 weeks. So you're basically introducing a rapid warm up while it's still very cold up above us.
And what does that create?
And that creates instability.
Right,
and that's when you get that very violent weather. So when that jet is very active, a lot of waves in it, a lot of north to south movement, you're basically you're bringing spring and summer conditions. It's not going to be long term necessarily, but you're bringing those conditions to the region, and that's what's going to set us up for early season tornadoes. Again, it's not just always going to happen in the southern plains, along the Gulf Coast, and then we watch it move further and further north. When you get that active jet, you're really throwing chaos into that forecast, and again, you're going to catch people off guard.
So even if you have fewer tornadoes climatologically or on average for the month of May or even September, that does not mean you're in the clear from those fewer numbers being equally violent.
Yeah.
And again, you're talking apples and oranges when you talk climate versus weather. Climate's what you expect to have happen. It's a very average. This is normal. And weather is all that chaos frequency that's in between. It's that day-to-day variety.
And what we saw on Thursday when we had the severe weather around here is Mother Nature has kind of a violent way of ending anomalously warm weather. And that's what we saw with the tornado threat. Before we leave, Ren, you had an interesting conversation with a couple of second graders, not from Minnesota, but from Cleveland, is that right?
That's right.
Tell us about it.
My goddaughter and her family, they live in Cleveland, Ohio. Here's Christine. This is before she went to school on Thursday, I believe it was May 8th, so a couple weeks ago, just shy of 2 weeks. And she had told her, they're in a weather unit for the last month, and she had told her teacher that she knew somebody that knows a good bit about weather, and that was me. And I don't think she realized that then her teacher would ask me to speak to her whole grade.
How about that?
So she's a little bit nervous in that photo. It's really sweet, actually.
What are we looking at right here?
Well, they divided all the kids into small groups, and each group was given a topic. So they've got, they focused on severe weather, weather safety. I think you can see a thunderstorm presentation, tornado. There was a hurricane as well, and they were all really, really into it. Now, I wasn't quite here yet, so I kind of put my Miss Frizzle hat on, and I went outside into my garden with my whatever big brimmed hat, and I tried to show kind of why what some of these flooding, why that's a concern with like impermeable surfaces in an urban environment versus the soil, and then erosion down by Minnehaha Creek. I walked down that way too and stuff like that. And so
I love the Magic School Bus references.
Yeah, I didn't have a studio, so we had to go.
You got to do that.
We had to go outside.
These are the reasons why we love you as part of our team. We're glad that you're here, and thanks for joining us for Weather or Whatever, our weekly Weather Mind segment. Thanks for tuning in and watching. We'll be back next week for another exciting edition to talk about all things weather. Until then, everyone have a wonderful day.